we are ready for live streaming if you are. Okay, we're starting in 2 minutes. Let's talk about basic hackathon questions, and that's gonna be like sounds good? All right. Alex, all right? I don't know if you're just thinking or distrustful. All right, I think we're ready. So guys, I would like to introduce our guests today, and I have to tell you, it is my extreme pleasure to have you guys and have such a great guest on our very first edition of ETHWarsaw. So starting on my left, the first person is Jakub Wojciechowski, the founder of RedStone. So please give a nice round of applause for our first guest. And the next one is Gluchowski from Matter Labs. That I wanted to say that builds ZK Sync, but you probably already know that. And we have Stani Kulechov-Aave Founder, a man who needs no introduction.
Dzień dobry.
So today we're going to talk about building hackathon projects, how to build a hackathon project that stands out. So let me start with a very simple question. How to pick a topic for a hackathon project?
You've been hacking most of us probably.
Yes, I get a bit of experience participating in different hackathons. So I think the strategy, like getting to the bounty list, sorting them by value, is the worst one, honestly. Like, don't go after the bounties, don't go after the money. Just think about something that you are excited about, that you got the proper skill set, and that's the hacking is incredible effort. So you need a lot of energy. So something that you enjoy building. That's my advice.
I would say that also to go after what is very much exciting for you and what you want to learn a lot, because sometimes it's very helpful when you actually start building something that you might, for example, not know, but you are very interested in. And that's one way to learn of one of the tech stacks or protocols that are here in ETHWarsaw. And some of them are very complex, so it's probably the only way to learn it properly as well by hacking. But yeah, I mean, there is definitely kind of like a no right way to do things and decide on what you should do. Sometimes it's just basically forming a team and just selecting something that everyone feels comfortable to build, and that's how it goes. Because essentially it's also a social event in the sense that, you know, you're hacking, learning and experiencing, but also making friends and connections here. And I think that's very valuable. Also, thing to notice that it might not be necessarily what you specifically want to build right away, but you actually are able to build something with a team, and that's very valuable.
So I would add two things. One is you want to pick a topic that is standing out and that is something unique and interesting and not like what everyone else is doing. And one way to try to find such a topic would be to think what problems will arise once the current obvious problems are all solved. Like what's going to be the next thing, like the next iteration. And then second, just imagine that you're presenting the topic and like how visual, how interesting is going to be your presentation, and pick something that has this visual component that you can show something that is interesting. Like think from, like just go through this imaginary step of presenting in your head.
Also to that, like a lot of hacks are focused on the infrastructure, and I like the idea of like the actual visual layer. So being able to not only build an application that works, but it's visually appealing and has very good UX. And I know it's like short period of time, 48 hours or whatever you have here, but essentially if you are putting effort into that visual component, it's very helpful when you present to the judges as well.
Would you say it's more important the project works or looks?
It must be both. You can, like, if a project does not work, everyone will feel that it's fake. It's not like it's not going to be fun. Something must work. So you want your presentation to be interactive. You want ideally your audience, to be able to play around with it and do something and see the reaction. That always makes them the best impression.
Well, yeah, I mean, I've seen a lot of ambitious stuff being built, and I would rather see something like more narrow that is working very well and being demonstrated. I think that's very valuable way kind of to learn. But yeah, I mean, definitely like build something that works.
Yeah, I think unfortunately, like ending with a PowerPoint presentation, even if it's the best one, even if you got a music video created, it won't get you to the top spot, unfortunately. It's a hackathon, it's like a technical challenge, and it just have to work.
All right then. So no dancing on the stage, we get it. So moving on to the next question then. How to pick a technology for the hackathon?
Well, I would say pick something trending that is like currently a big hot thing. I'm very biased, but like do something L2.
I think also it's good to manage your expectations. So if you're like a front-end developer and you heard that the zero-knowledge proofs are cool stuff, are super trendy, then there might be a stretch to learn the whole cryptography from scratch, etc. So just try also to pick something that matches your skill when you can really excel. So yeah, hot topics are great, but also the topics that you can bring your own experience and your skill set.
But then do I learn a lot if I pick something I'm really good at?
Yeah, exactly. So it's a spectrum. So find something that will allow you to develop, to grow, but maybe that don't be over-ambitious, because then it's only 40 hours. So try to balance, like learning something new, stretching yourself, but not overstretching.
And Stani, you wanted to add?
I definitely agree as well that if finding something that you're very comfortable with building and you have a good grasp of what it is and how an idea like how you will do the implementation is very helpful, and I think it's a place to learn, but already you can learn a lot of things of the stuff that you have been reading about previously, or maybe build something relatively similar. But it's also like a place I see hackathon as more of like a like personal journeys than competitions, in the sense that you're here to find something new, try something interesting, or just reinforce your own ideas of maybe what you already had in some of the tech that is available. And I kind of like, I will not stress too much like how like good is the idea, or whether what you're building is going to be interesting. The main point is that it's interesting for you, and that it's valuable for you and your team, and like you're in a mission to actually solve it and build it. So I think it's more about internally thinking about that, because when you are actually presenting your project to the judges, you know, the fact that you are excited about what you're building, you know, that will reflect from your presentations and your demos as well. We necessarily don't know when we judge hackathon projects, like what are you trying to solve, but like the way you explain and know the technology and like understand the issue, that reflects in the idea itself. And I think that's very valuable. So it's actually just a question. How many of you already know what you're gonna hack? Like, well, half and a half. Well, that's good. So maybe we'll give some ideas as well.
All right then. So we have a project. We know the technology. How do we build a dream team? A dream team for our project.
Okay, so it's good to have like a complementary set of skills. So if you put only like let's say for hardcore backend or low-level developer, then they may struggle with explaining the idea. So sometimes it's good to mix with other people. It's also like super inspiring if you got a diverse team. So you can learn from someone else, you can explore different aspects of technologies, etc. But also it's really important to find people that you will enjoy working with, because like if 40 hours, you spend 2 nights together. So picking someone that from the beginning there is no chemistry, you don't like working with, talking with, that will be a disaster. So after the first night, after the second night, that the hackathon is always like an adventure. It's like exciting time for you to enjoy. So find the people that you like spending time with.
Yeah, the chemistry is really important, and you can take this as a experiment where, you know, like you can test your intuition. You can meet people and just randomly try to scan them, and like not thinking about this too much, because your intuition is a lot broader, a lot deeper than your conscious knowledge base about like selecting people. So you can be like just feeding people and saying like, who do I feel like could be working? You know, you start interacting with this person, you have this feeling of like it's yes or no, and then you can actually go into the hackathon. And you know, it's a short project of like for 2 days, so like the cost is not high if you make a wrong choice. So you can test out different like edges, and then this way you develop your intuition for something in the future that will actually matter when you're going to build a startup and like, or you know, join a company or something.
Yeah, and I think just based on interest as well. So let's say that, you know, if someone is interested in let's say ZK, you know, you could chat with those folks and group around somewhere in the premises and just like share ideas, and maybe from there some interesting ideas will come. That's very helpful. And same with, for example, with oracles, like there's plenty of things to experiment. And obviously, you know, Aave protocol and Lens protocol, there's a bunch of good stuff you can build on those 2 protocols. And I think that's helpful, and minding that, you know, it's not a competition, so like definitely you have to have good teamwork with your team members, but also not stress too much. I know it's like short period of time, you probably will not sleep at all, unfortunately, but at least you will have a nice experience as well. But you know, it's just something that you shouldn't stress, and rather have a good chemistry with your team members and have a good experience than kind of like remember it in a bad way and not come next year. So it's more about that.
What about the roles? So you talk about the chemistry and different types of software development, but what about designers? What about product and marketing people? Is that type of people that would be valuable for your dream team?
Yeah, I think it matters. You definitely want developers who can build stuff, like full stack or like different roles. And you want someone with strong visual emphasis who can present things, and also someone who can has presentation skills, like talk and make a point there. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's obviously like a developer hackathon, but it's just one part of it, and there's different roles that are needed. There's a good presentation needs to be done as well that helps the administration, and also the business logic. And definitely it's very valuable, and I recommend, especially I personally want to see more also user experience and designers in the hackathons, and kind of see more visually good hacks as well.
So would you say that there is a place, let's say, for UX researchers or type of product people that just go out and test whatever you're building?
Definitely, I think that's part of it. So if you build an application, someone spends a couple of hours in UX research and understands different applications, how they work. That's very valuable, that research, and you'll see it in the end result as well. And I think it's one of the things. What's nice is to kind of aim to a solution that is very interesting, and also a good implementation, and that helps you quite a lot. And for those who are also maybe entering into the space first time, or early in their careers, or still studying, that's how much of the work happens in companies that build software. So there's engineering, but there's also designers, UX, and research, and so forth. So even project management and product management is something that is very valuable. So it's definitely a good idea.
I may say that there's a place for everyone in a perfect hackathon team. So even if you are not a software engineer, still you can be a very valuable, even a key member of a team. Say focusing your time on the communication, how to present the idea, that's also super important, or even giving the energy to the team, managing the tasks, testing the application. So yeah, don't be afraid to come to hackathon if you are not a software developer, and sometimes people like that adds an amazing value.
Right, you heard it. More product design and research. Yes, we see those people so rarely on hackathons, or at least on Web3 hackathons. I agree. I would like to see more. So, yeah, how to maximize the outcome given the limited amount of time? I already heard something about sleeping, so I'm really curious where it's gonna go.
Oh, I really like this question. So it's actually perfect training to real life problems where you always have not enough time to do things you want. So you really want to prioritize. You want to learn to prioritize. You want Pareto principle applies to everything in life. You get 80% of outcome from applying 20% of your effort to the right thing. So you just want to see what is the biggest thing I can do immediately. What's the how to build the minimum viable thing, something that is very, very basic. And then what can we add, what feature can we add that will have the maximum additional value to it. And once you build that, what's the next feature that can add additional value, etc. So just this is gonna be a lesson that will help you a lot later.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's an amazing experience in, let's say, planning under a heavy pressure. Something. So if you are going maybe to start your company afterwards, that's a perfect training, because you have a situation like that. You get a very important customers or the crisis in your code, and then you need to solve a problem during a very short period of time. So hackathon is amazing training. And how else can you maximize the efforts? Yeah, there are some ways to keep your energy level up, but please also try to remain healthy, because you can be like destroyed after a hackathon, and we do not want you to have some side effect on your health. So manage your, let's say, efforts, but yeah, sometimes it's necessary to put more out of yourself.
Yeah, I would say also that kind of like not building everything. Like if you need to build an application, like maybe just what you're trying to solve is in that application, so you need to implement too many things, and make it as simple as possible. And things like if you need to connect like a wallet, you can use already like pre-made libraries like the Rainbow Kit or something like that, where you don't really want to spend time on building from scratch, but focusing on the actual main thing is valuable. Yeah, and I mean, if you need to sleep, you should sleep. I think it's, but sometimes you don't have time. It's very common in DeFi that you just have to work the whole night or even a couple of days in a row to solve an issue. It's tough, but it's part of the also other excitement that happens, that we are dealing with such a new technology, and there's so many new problems to solve, and you're part of it.
So what I'm hearing is you don't need to make everything work, just a happy path, so you don't need to worry about edge cases, security, and all this stuff. Is that right? Is that what you're saying?
For hackathon, definitely you don't have time to do the edge cases. You want the big thing to work. You want to show the prototype, the proof of concept.
Yeah, probably you won't have time to optimize your code, to refactor, to write documentation, to write a proper test set on different devices. No, there's no enough time. So focus on the core part that's the most important, and always you can finish all of that. So it's a very bad engineering advice. Obviously, you should start with a well-written, readable, well-tested code, but not today and not tomorrow.
Yeah, I mean, you're not really building a product. It's more of like a proof of concept and just like an idea, and turning that idea alive. Like that's what it is. So I definitely think you don't need to spend too much time to like bulletproof everything.
All right, so moving on from the project into the presentation phase. How to prepare your presentation? How much of making the project stand out, this actual project, versus the way you present it?
So when I started participating in hackathons, so we got a strategy. We'll build the real thing, the product, and the presentation, we'll leave it for Sunday morning. So that was the approach, very bad approach. On Sunday morning, when there's like a 15 minutes before the judging session, you do not have energy, you do not have the creativity to prepare slides. So that's not the best strategy. So it's really nice to start as early as possible. Treat it as a side event. You can have your slides, think it through. Maybe you want to stop coding and focus on the messaging. You can get some initial feedback, etc. So starting early is a really great idea.
Yeah, so if you think about it, presentation is the product of the hackathon. That is what people are going to consume. Like no one will be able, I mean, sometimes you can give code to play with around, like showing QR code or something, which is always cool, but that is again part of the presentation, right? So you want to plan the presentation from the beginning. Not necessarily do it, but plan it. But as I said before, the presentation must be working. I would, if possible, avoid the slideshow and just go straight into the working prototype and show great things there.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's where you kind of like explain your problem and what did you solve and how did you solve and what why it's so impactful, like what kind of impact it creates as well. I recommend also to record maybe a video. So if something goes wrong in the presentation phase, you still have video to present. Maybe drop it into LensTube later. I don't know, but that could be useful. And yeah, and also like maybe like tell why you're super excited about what you build. That's always helpful for me to understand as well. And you know, especially like if you're showing code that is hard for judges that are non-technical to necessarily to understand. So like try to explain as much as you can to make things understandable.
So if I might add something, I think it's also it could be super helpful to test your presentation, because with judges we have like 2 minutes, and you will be one of the 50 projects that they are going to look into. They do not have enough time to fully understand the things that maybe you know, but you don't say. So if you get a presentation early, you can come to the sponsors. They are sitting bored in the booths. You can make a dry run. You can get a very early feedback. I know maybe you get like a great idea. I know NFTs for dogs. You think that's an amazing idea, but then you get a presentation. You go to a sponsor and they say, it may not work. So having an early feedback is a super important stuff, and then it will help you to structure and shape your community. A way how you explain your product. That's also like super important. If you see that no one gets it, maybe it's a good moment to start about a different strategy, how to explain it.
I have a question to Alex. So you said presentation is the product of the hackathon. Then perhaps one should start hackathon with figuring out how he wants the presentation to go, and then put all the tasks in, you know, does that make sense?
Yes, you definitely want to plan it when you start. So you think about the product, and then you think, you know, like imagine that you're building something like some DeFi project, right? The way users are going to interact with it is through the front end. So even if you have a lot of complexity, a lot of value in the smart contracts that you created in some sophisticated way, you still have to think about the end user experience on the front end, right? Like how, like, is it going to be convenient? Maybe you need to change something in the protocol to make it possible to like do a one-click interaction instead of like two-click interactions, right? So you always want to keep this end user experience before you when you plan the product, when you design the architecture for the entire system. So for the hackathon, what the users are going to interact with is your presentation at the end. That's how people are going to perceive the result of your work. That is for me like the final packaging. Like the product is of course everything you do, but like let's call it the front end. The front end of your work is your presentation, not the actual website or mobile app.
Yeah, and also I think like if you like, I know some of you all like are backend developers and less comfortable on the front end side, but like I've seen hacks where people present like the backend logic, how they solve a problem and so forth. But like if there is kind of like a way to reduce that work and have a user interface, that's like very helpful for presentations. To be honest, even if it's ugly, it's like worth it because it helps to understand like how it's useful, and especially when you think of how to improve it later after the hackathon. So it's quite good idea.
All right then. So moving on to the next question. What are good reasons to win a prize other than the prize itself? Or to make it a little bit more understandable, what are the good reasons to make your project stand out other than to win the prize?
Okay, so there is a life after hackathon, and sometimes it's even more important what happens after hackathon. So when you get the prize, then it's a big stamp of approval that at least for a set of people, for the judges, your project was interesting, your project was cool. It's like also like a boost of confidence that it's worth working on further. So yeah, and also it's like a great visibility. Because for winners, you get a prize, but also you get the opportunity to present your project. And there's a huge audience at the end of the conference, and a few hundred people will be able to see your hack. So yeah, the visibility is cool, the verification, the feedback from the judges is also very important, how to improve your project. So they are sometimes even more important than the actual prize.
Stani, Alex, anything you would like to add?
I think learning is what you're actually getting most of the hackathon. So you learn by actually you want some indicator that you made things right, and the winning the prize is an indicator. Like you want some target. Like when I go on hiking, I always like to have like a point where I'm gonna go to, like, you know, some point of interest or whatever. Because like you can just hike, but if you have this target, it makes it more interesting and more, you know, like I'm gonna make it there. It's similar here. So like it gives you this additional motivation to actually do the effort to, like, you know, get to the point of appreciation.
Yeah, I think it's like, I don't see the prizes like as the things, like it's not like the actual winning is that you're already here and building stuff. So like that's the value that is happening here, and also like the friends you make here and the people you meet. I mean, the thing is that's interesting about the Ethereum community is that there's so much like accessibility to a lot of the founders and the team members in the space. So like you can come and talk to all of the founders here, and you know it's very common in Ethereum hackathons. And I think, and also like Cuba, for example, he's a local founder, which is incredible. And hopefully we see more founders in the future. But I think like that's the value that is happening, and the prices are kind of like cherry on top. They're as Alex mentioned, kind of like a way of actually like having like a goal and a focus point. And I think it's amazing that we have these prizes and sponsors coming in and providing the bounties, and it's a way to also like incentivize learning for yourself. And I think they are valuable, but there's like more into it. So there's more winners here after the weekend. Yeah, but bounties are also good because it's cash, so, or USDC, whatever it is.
All right then. So Kuba, you mentioned, you know, life of the project after hackathon. So what are, you know, other outcomes than I came to hackathon, I learned this, I met great people, you know, have a great time. What are other possible outcomes one can try to strive for?
So I think, okay, you may start working on a project just for fun to learn something, but I think a lot of you may think about the project as an idea for the actual product or even a company after a hackathon. And yeah, so that's one of the possible outcomes. You take the idea and you transform that in a real application, real product, and a real startup. And I think that's a common path. And we've seen a lot of projects that started during the hackathon, and now they are like a very popular application in the space.
Any particular names you can remember? Or any one of you guys?
There were lots of projects that actually like originated at hackathons.
One inch.
One inch comes to
in
mind
New York,
first.
CryptoKitties in Waterloo. At least those. So you know, you never know.
Maybe I think Pull Together was also created at one hackathon.
Ah, yeah, Pull Together indeed, yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, who knows? You might build something that is very valuable for the community, and then you get more excited and you need to build. But it doesn't need to be the aim that it becomes a product. I actually think you have more space and creativity when you don't need to think that it becomes a product after the hackathon, and even you can actually leave it there because that's like nice, interesting memory as well. So, but if it happens that it's really important piece of like in the whole community, then obviously that's nice too. But it's just that doesn't need to be the goal, of course, at all.
Is that a reasonable goal? Is that when I go to hackathon, I want to build something, get funding, get it built? Is that something, or do you think it happens more by accident, or what would be the reasonable attitude about it?
I try to steer away from that because I've seen kind of also like very very crafted hacks in a way that you kind of see that the idea was to build like a product and see maybe the like reactions and feedback of the judges and kind of like get some kind of like speed to the idea and product through a hackathon. But I think if that's the aim, I don't think it's bad either. I mean, that's just someone might have that kind of like approach. But I just think there's way more value where you can do that part like on your free time, and if whatever you build on the free time, if it's valuable, people get interested into it, and maybe it becomes a company if you want to be a founder. And you first need to decide if you want to be a founder, because it's not the best job in the world, to be honest, especially in DeFi, where you have to wake up middle of the night to see what's going on with the on-chain activity. So it's more of like I think we romanticize too much of the idea of like creating products within hackathons. Actually, I feel that you should build anything that you will not build in a professional capacity here, and that helps to explore things that you might not do and take more risks, and also find what other people like to build or are interested in, because that way you maybe you get some additional learnings and knowledge about something that you will never build yourself, and just by spending the weekend on listening to someone and getting excited about those ideas and building together.
It's very, yeah.
No, I want to say I agree. It's hard to be a founder, and you want to have something that you have fun with doing in the process, not just like enjoying the final result. If you don't have the like at least big part of the process that you really enjoy, it's impossible. It's like there is too much anxiety and too much stress and pressure. So you can use, like, the best thing you can do at hackathon is to have fun and learn what you're having fun with.
As a famous quote from Steve Jobs, you have to love what you do to persevere when it gets really, really hard, and it's gonna get really, really hard sooner or later. So, but I wanna argue on what Stani said. You said, hey, if you wanna build a real thing, then just don't do it on hackathon, do it at home, right? Or do it, in a serious way. But the hackathon is this unique opportunity where you can spend very limited amount of time without risking your whatever day job or anything else, and you can get tremendous amount of feedback from judges. Oftentimes there are VCs in the audience, right? And I would even argue, if you have idea, go for the hackathon, build it, and just, not with the idea to make it into a company, but with the idea to validate and learn, is that a good direction to build a company at all, right? Not necessarily not necessarily coming out of hackathon the next day and have yes or no, but just iterate toward the direction, right?
I mean, it is validation, it is validation for the idea, but at the end of the day, like the way the whole Ethereum ecosystem is functioning today is that you can get that validation almost any person in the community at any time in let's say online in different groups or by approaching them. So many folks are quite available, and you don't necessarily need the opinions of all the judges. They might have that 2 minutes to review things, or let's say 5 minutes, and might not get the impact of the idea either. So like, I definitely think it's a lot of validation for the ideas that you might have, but I think like you can also do that outside of the hackathon, and you still have a lot of possibility to get validation. Like you can do it here, but also like it's not necessarily your like that now you have one and only chance to do this because there happens to be a hackathon, and you know it's more about fun than anything else. And you know the more the way I see, the more you can steer away from like work productization and towards more fun, that's more interesting way to spend a weekend, especially a weekend where you're not going to sleep. So think about that.
Here's a good question. When do I sleep after the hackathon if I have to go to work on Monday? That's a rhetorical one. So, guys, we talk a lot about the hackathons, the projects, how to build a team, and so on. And we still have another 15 minutes. And I would love to hear your thoughts. You know, you were telling a lot about picking the newest technologies, the newest interesting, pushing the barrier of what's possible in specific space. So I would like to ask you, you know, what do you guys find to be the most exciting things in these different areas? And I propose to start with DeFi. So what are the most exciting things happening in DeFi today? What are the most interesting things that you expect to happen, to be built, that could be built in the DeFi space?
Well, one of the things that happened recently with the Tornado Cash is that a lot of companies that are supplying front ends for the decentralized finance applications, there's now an interesting opportunity to actually think about solutions, how you can actually decentralize the access points into permissionless networks, such as for example, the Aave protocol, like how you could actually access it without relying let's say one single front end or actually any centralized front ends, but actually have some sort of a way to have an access without a specific one single entity, whether that's some sort of a desktop application or an interesting way of hosting and pointing actually to a interface. That's very fascinating, and I think like building DeFi in general is more slightly difficult because you have to be a bit more creative. There's a lot of yield aggregators out there. There's a lot of things that has been built, but there's still a lot of room for creativity, and I think part of that can happen actually in layer 2s, because that's where a lot of you can do a lot of transactioning with lower cost, and you can create their financial primitives that, for example, might not be couldn't be efficient, for example, in mainnet, and have, let's say, interest rate swaps or trading your debt positions as well, and so forth. And obviously, like anything you do with oracles, I think that's also very cool stuff. I think in overall, like the oracle system today is quite centralized, so there's sort of innovation that can be done and innovated in that aspect, and I think that's where a lot of value could be created as well.
If I may extend on the last topic, because accidentally we are an oracle company, so yeah, our bet is that the DeFi will need more data. And we got requests for data about volatility, interest rate, historical prices, etc., coming from the newcomers to the DeFi space. And I see that the product will be more complex in the future. We started with simple DEXs, but then building like the auto hedging tokens require a lot more data. And then there is still an amazing opportunity space when we be able to bring more data to the space. People will come, utilize in a very creative way, probably the way we cannot imagine at the moment. But also it's like interesting from the Oracle point of view, connecting to the real world data, like the real world assets. How can we tokenize that? Whether there will be enough documentation, so connection to this boring legal regulatory area is also happening in DeFi. It will probably be accelerated after the recent events, as Stani mentioned, with the Tornado Cash. I think more and more people, more and more regulators are looking at the space, and more people in the space are getting scared. So if they can go after Tornado Cash, maybe we need to have some defensive mechanism. Maybe we need some basic KYC, etc. It's like a very controversial topic. You want to have privacy, but it's the challenge, the DeFi space we need to get through.
Interesting. KYC versus privacy. Just want to repeat that. Alex, anything you would like to add?
It's a bit harder to add for me things in the bear market because things are being developed more quietly, like not so loud, not so flashy. So we're double down focused on the launch of zk-Sync now, and we're committed to launch zk-Sync version 2, the first zk VM on mainnet in less than 2 months. So I'm completely in the final focus on that.
We're also waiting for that quite an excited way, because like it unlocks a lot of opportunities, not just privacy but scalability. So zk is definitely something to consider, and it's also like an area probably that you learn a lot by doing it in practice, I would say.
So you are getting ahead of me and start talking about technologies to build hot technologies, but I wanted to ask about real-world assets. Any thoughts on this part of the space? Is that still DeFi though?
Real-world assets, right?
Yep.
I think it is. It's USDC, USDT. Those are real-world assets and quite biggest assets at the moment in the DeFi space. I like the idea of DeFi is just bring transparency, non-custodial access to different kinds of financial applications, and also there's like composability, which is like you can program between one application to work with multiple, but also the composability of liquidity. So like when you have value represented in a blockchain and you can move it across where it has some financial sense, that's DeFi to me as well. Obviously, like there is more, like with real-world assets, there's obviously the custody aspect, whether it's a tokenization of actually like dollars in a bank account, or let's say wine bottles or whatever. There's always that aspect, but you know that's another kind of like a problem to solve, and maybe like more related to real-life decentralized networks. But I think it's a DeFi as well, and there's actually a lot of value there, and I think we will see a lot of progress. Centrifuge is doing a lot of cool stuff on that aspect, and bringing those assets into the DeFi ecosystem.
All right, so then moving on to technologies. We heard layer 2, we heard zero knowledge. Anything else or anything more about those two technologies that is worth sharing with our audience?
So layer 2s are going to be massively important in the near future. This is the technology that enables actually paves the path for mass adoption for the next billions, like billions of users, literally, like in all the different use cases. It's like this is what makes cryptocurrencies actually evolve into the next wave of the internet, like where we're building the internet of value, where everything that is happening in the Web 2 world or in like older internet economy will be happening on blockchain. Like everything that touches value will happen on blockchain, from DeFi assets, property titles, invoicing, like all of these things are going to come on chain and be connected and programmable and meshed together. And for that, I think, so like I'm always very excited about all things that enable mass adoption. Infrastructure and scalability is one of them. This is what we're focused on with zk-sync. But I'm also very, very excited about things like wallets and like everything that makes the UX better. So decentralized front ends, decentralized wallets, actually extremely important from the point of view of KYC, privacy, all these things. But also they must have an excellent UX, comparable, like on par or even better than the neo-banking that what users from Web 2 are used to. Like we have to beat that. There may be no compromise. You will not win by saying to your users, oh, you have to just tolerate some inconveniences here. No one is going to tolerate like even a simple one-click addition. Like you have to make it super, super simple and easy, but at the same time secure and keep the self-custody with the user. So like this is a really interesting direction to explore with your projects. Like what you need to onboard the billions.
Let me just repeat it, because it's a very interesting thing you said, and in my mind, like the wallet space is already so crowded, but what you're saying, doing new wave or non-custodial layer 2 wallets is something that is extremely attractive space. Is that what I heard? Or
yeah, so also think about this way, like wallets that work on mobile phones, that act as mobile applications, are extremely in danger of being like pushed by the policies of two big marketplaces, Android and iOS, to whatever direction those companies want them to be pushed, because otherwise they just delete them from the spaces. Like, do we have a better alternative that can work independent of the will of Apple and Google? How can we do that, but still keep it as secure and convenient as any mobile application? Can we make it work somehow with hardware wallets or not, or like just exploring these different classes of solutions?
I want to add to that, like for example, the user behavior of like signing a transaction with MetaMask is something that like interrupts the normal like internet behavior that we have used. So, for example, when with the Lens ecosystem, so Lens is Web3 social media protocol, and anyone can actually build their own front end to that protocol. It can be like anything, any kind of like content from video, audio, text, and there's, for example, one particular front end built in another hackathon, which is called Lenser, and effectively it works the same way as any other social media application. So you can post content and so, but you had to always sign a transaction. So that's an interesting way, like to examine, like, and also in DeFi applications, but where you have applications that you're using constantly, like how much it breaks the user behavior. And what we did in the community is actually we created this kind of like a dispatcher, which on the one side it's a relayer that pays for the gas, but also you can delegate your signature to that dispatcher. So you do it only once, and you don't need to sign transactions anymore. And that brings the user experience to like what people are used to in Web2 space. But as Alex says, that we actually need to go even further, because like I know we have very exciting technology and it really creates sort of impact. It's about decentralization. But the more we are onboarding masses, the appeal is actually having something that is at least better than they have at the moment, them to onboard. That's why I think like rebuilding Twitter will not work, but rebuilding an application that has some sort of another kind of like an interest will be exciting. And I think that's where like non-financial applications will have a lot of value as well, because maybe onboarding the next generation of users will not come by buying Ethereum or let's say spending funds in any DeFi applications, but they come through interacting with the blockchain by non-financial applications. And I think that's where layer 2s and being able to delegate your signature and those kind of like ideas come into place. And it doesn't need to be necessarily DeFi what you're aiming for. There's definitely new use cases out there, and something also I personally hope to see being built.
Right, guys, a lot of very inspiring ideas. We're running out of time, so one sentence of advice to our fellow hackers, how to make your project stand out.
But put a gradient on it, I don't know.
Come again?
Put a gradient on the, no, I think it doesn't work anymore. But this shows like also kind of like how much we have to improve after like every single hackathon as a community. And that's why the user experience needs to be always better. But I think what makes it stand out is that where the judges will see a team that has spent a decent amount of time and they like what they're solving, it's an interesting challenge, and the implementation is exciting, and you're able to like explain and communicate it well, and also they see that you enjoyed the process or there was some learning aspect there. I think maybe that's the way to stand out.
Yeah, I also want to re-emphasize, just have fun and make sure that this comes over at the presentation. When people see you had fun, you know, it's like, it's contagious, so they will enjoy it too.
My advice would be, do not hide somewhere in the corner. It may be more efficient if you just be silent there, focus on coding, do not talk to anyone, but that's not the purpose of a hackathon. So talk to people, get fun, get excited, and try to transfer that excitement to the judges. Because yeah, there is presentation, there's a product, but also there is this human factor. If they see that you are so pumped about your project, it will resonate with the judges as well.
Thank you, guys. I want to thank you very much for joining the panel, giving all the great advice, and taking so much of your very precious time. To Alex and Stani for coming to Poland and joining us. And guys, please give a nice round of applause. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Also, if you have some nice pictures of the event, remember to post into Lenser. That's my only request.